So Mill Valley was one of those markets that was so hot throughout the pandemic that at some point it just had to taper off and it had to cool down. And I think that's finally happened. Because when I was watching the market closely in the summer, it was almost like every second home that hit the market sold within a handful of days and broke some kind of record. Which makes sense, right? Like Mill Valley is one of the most accessible, really nice neighborhoods, communities, cities accessible to San Francisco, like close enough that you could drive there every single day and it'd be enjoyable, coupled with the amount of beautiful homes that exist in Mill Valley. So it made sense that that market popped, but it's definitely tapered back now. The average sales price for a house, the average price for a house in Mill Valley in November was down to sort of mid 1.8s, whereas throughout the entire year it was sort of in 2.4, 2.5 range. I think we'll continue seeing that throughout 2020. Like I don't really anticipate that trend. 2022. I don't anticipate the trend line to change because back to office is going to kick in. People are going to have to start driving to the office, and and most offices are in San Francisco. So whoever moved too far away is going to be like, whoever moved east, right, and commuting across the Bay Bridge, that's going to get old really quickly. So I think that trend line will continue through most of 2022. I would anticipate a crazy spring. Supply is so low right now, and I want to pull you inside the graph in a second and sort of show you behind the scenes of what I'm seeing. But because supply is so tight and there's just nothing available, and there really hasn't been anything super desirable available since August, September, right? Like when there was probably like 4, 5, 6 listings where you just go, damn, I would love to live in that house. And so what's kind of happened is the listings that were competing with these hyper desirable houses that ended up sitting on the market for 30, 40, 50, 60 days, they all started to sell October, November, which sort of brought that yearly average sales price down a little bit. Let's jump behind. I want to show you sort of behind the scenes what I see in some of the data trend lines that I analyze to kind of get a good feel of how a market is performing. So this is Trend Graphics. This is one of the data aggregators that we use to sort of track how any given market is doing at any given time. And what I've got up here is Mill Valley's months of inventory. And 0.5 is about as low as any market, I would say, around the country, especially the Bay Area. And month supply is how long it takes, I should say, for the amount of listings being listed per month to sell out. So this is saying that it takes about half a month for all the listings that get launched on any given month to sell. Now, an indicator of a hot real estate market is anything sort of just sub 1.0. It's rare that you see something as low as 0.5. And like looking at Mill Valley even back into this time last year, right? Like we were still pretty steadily above 1 for a good chunk of time, in the mid ones. But something that actually may have factored into the slowdown of the market, especially since sort of August, September, is this. There's actually a growing gap between the average price of properties listed for sale versus the ones being sold. And it shows here, right, where demand and the rest of the market was sort of seeing all these houses sell for crazy values, and they did here too. That I think what we're seeing is a lot of people selling properties for crazy values. I think a lot of people got really excited and thought, hang on a second, this property that I thought was worth 2.4 might be worth 3.1 now. Let's list it. And so a lot of people started listing or overpricing their listings. And the buyers fell out for these overpriced listings, which is actually so indicative of the strategy to sell the median price point house in Mill Valley. It is list significantly below what you think it will sell for. It's not list really high and hope that somebody will come and chase your price. So interesting month, or couple of months, I should say, overall. But again, in general, I think what you're going to see in 2022 is a lot more of this, where the sold listings just keep steadily climbing. So as you can see, this market isn't going to slow down. It might have slowed down for a short period of time. Obviously, we're at the end of the year, but I would Heavily anticipate a really busy February onwards. So if you are getting ready to list the property, I'd get it ready to go by end of January, start of February, and it'll pop.